Hey everyone, and welcome to Cold Outreach Success Stories, where we interview regular business people just like you who have achieved consistent business results using cold outreach on email and other channels. We go deep into their process with hot tips around personalization, messaging, and targeting to make sure that you take away some good ideas to implement in your cold outreach. So, Tony, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Saurav, how's it going?
Going well, man. Before we dive into the podcast, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Tony G. I graduated from Lehigh University with a bachelor's in industrial systems engineering. During college, I kind of realized that the corporate life is really not my thing. And since then, I have been mostly traveling and alternative approach to my life and to my career. Currently, I operate two businesses, Sound and Social Broker, both of which are sort of a means to an end for me, and they exist so that I can your goals of being a fine creator.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're in the whole digital nomad, the alternative lifestyle kind of guy, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Got it. Got it. Cool. So let's dive a bit deeper into the businesses. So what is Treat Your Sound? What is Social Broker? What do you do?
Okay, sure. So I'll have to start a little bit. So one of my primary skill set I've developed is audio engineering. For the people who aren't familiar, I essentially can assist people create digital audio content. So filmmakers, podcast creators like yourself, they all sort of need audio post-processing work in order to get their content stream ready. So that their content doesn't sound jarring or bad when you place it next to other people's content. It's kind of just like a standardizing of audio so that it fits in with everyone else's audio. So that's essentially what Treat Your Sound is. It's a freelance podcast / audio post-production business. And Social Broker, which is the company that has kind of arisen from the success of Treat Your Sound, is my sort of bespoke programming service where I create sort of aggregate data for marketing purposes. And it kind of was created because of the success I saw marketing Treat Your Sound through cold email. So yeah, that's essentially what my two businesses are.
Right. That's awesome, man. So I know how much work goes into like post podcasts. It's about making sure that the voice doesn't break, the audio, there's no background noise and all that. So I really appreciate
Yeah.
like the effort that my edit guy puts in. So I can totally see how it's a big problem for a lot of podcasting businesses.
Yes,
So
definitely.
who are your ideal customers, like, and how do you sort of get their data?
My ideal customers are essentially, well, for Treat Your Sound, they are filmmakers, podcast hosts, and musicians.
Okay.
So for the purposes of this interview, I'm just going to focus on podcasters because they probably make up the vast majority of my business. So podcasters, the way I get their information is I built a script that searched Instagram by hashtag. So I used hashtag podcasters of Instagram, for example, to find all of the users on Instagram who had a podcast or were a host of a podcast. And what I would profiles, of course, have emails that are public. And if you were to sort of get that data manually, it would take you forever to sort through 80,000 results because there's over 300,000 posts under that hashtag. And so what I did was I wrote a script that essentially checks the hashtag and pulls the user data from every single user who has posted under that hashtag. So I think I built a list of about 2,000 emails under that hashtag, and I believe in about under a day. And it was my first email campaign ever. Essentially, what I did was when I collected the data, I had other dimensions of the data that were helpful, things like what their Instagram handle was, their names were. And when all I did was essentially personalize the headline with their Instagram handle and made sure I included their name in the copy of the email. And that was essentially how I first found my success email marketing. And eventually, that's why Social Broker exists, because I'm trying to help people who are looking to start a cold email campaign, but they have the upfront capital to hire a full-time staff to manually find emails. My solution is higher volume, lower price, and much faster speed.
I definitely see a need for that. I mean, in the market, because what you're saying around getting more data to make sure the cold email is personalized, it's become the norm. I mean, gone are the days when you could just say hey first name and that sort of passed for personalization. It doesn't anymore, right? It's 2020,
Right.
it definitely doesn't. So yeah, just to get a sort of go a bit deeper into that, what all data did you use? Like, what were the custom snippets like? So you mentioned that you collected their handle. What else?
Where I was able to get things like follower counts. So, for example, one of the filters I made that really helped was I would eliminate users under a certain count. So I figured that if someone had under like 100 followers on their Instagram channel, they likely did not have a budget for post production. I found a spot around anywhere from 1,000 to 100,000 followers. That was basically the demographic that responded the best, either with a "we're sorry, we already have someone who edits our audio," or "yes, we are interested, but currently, reach back out to us next season because currently we're on a break." So I figured there were some parameters that would allow to target them better. Things like country, where they were from in the world, so I could make sure I was compliant when I was sending these emails because certain countries have different laws. And then I think I also had things like post count. So another filter I did was if they are under a certain post count, I think I did something like 30. Then typically it meant that they were either a new podcast or they were just getting started and therefore likely didn't have a budget or had not been monetizing their podcast at the time, which meant that that wasn't exactly a good customer. Yeah, there's it was to sum post count, name, follower count, business, business type. I don't think that earlier, but business type. So a lot of them was like podcast host or podcast, and then country. And those were I think, probably the 5 main data types that I used.
That's pretty clever, and there's a couple of learnings here for our listeners. So what's pretty interesting is that you just didn't use them to personalize; you also use them to qualify. Yet that is a part of your ideal customer profile, right? So, for example,
Right.
if they don't have a certain number of posts or if they don't have a certain number of followers, they probably would respond to your email, but they would not be a good fit because they don't have the right budget or the right need in that sense. So I think
Yeah.
I think
Exactly.
more data doesn't just help you personalize better. It can also sort of tell you upfront whether emailing this person is going to be a waste, and I should shift my ideal customer profile to a different segment because you know
Right. Hmm.
not a fit.
Yes, you summarized that perfectly.
Cool. So that's one of those. That's one of the learnings. Cool, cool, cool. So in terms of your best results, so what do they look like? So just rough numbers in terms of open and reply rates, and what were the sizes of those campaigns?
So I wrote a Reddit post on r email marketing best campaign, I did 69% opens, 30% click-through rate on 2,000 emails. And actually, that number is that number is actually higher than the number that I wrote, because I split up one campaign into two campaigns. So I actually, in an earlier campaign, I saw actually very similar results in the mid 60% open range with a similar, oh, sorry, I also forgot to include 9% reply rate. So to the sort of podcast demographic, sent 20,000 emails. In that particular campaign that I mentioned, I think the sample size was like 2,000. But I think overall, like targeting podcasters on Instagram, I think I have probably sent over 20,000 emails. Open rates, I'm guessing averaging out to about 65% opens. My click-through rate has been steady at 30%, and my response rate has been anywhere from 9% to about 11%. So yeah, I get about 8 or 9 emails, inbound emails every day from my campaign, and I close about 3 to 5 new clients a month.
3 to 5 clients per month?
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty impressive, man. From a semi-automated cold email campaign in that sense. I would say like almost fully automated, right? Because you build the script in a day, you get all that data out, you put them into an automation tool, it starts sending out campaigns, and you're getting sort of replies on
Yep.
after that.
Yeah, I mean, there is a certain amount of A/B testing that you have to do, and sort of the copywriting process is can be a pain. But when I started, I think my rates were really bad. But I think within the course of a month, I was able to test and find like a working copy that was doing like 65% opens and 25% click-through rates. So fortunately, I'm just kind of English is English is my first language, and just know how to communicate with people. And I think I understand the sort of annoyance that comes with unsolicited emails. And my emails have always been designed to seem like I'm not just some random email guy trying to make a quick buck. I'm actually a business owner that has a legitimate service that my readers could benefit from. So I feel like when I go in to the copywriting process with that in mind, trying to keep it as short as possible, I think my emails were like 4 lines long, I believe. Just a quick, simple like, hey, this is my name. I know that you're a podcast owner because I found you on Instagram, and here are my services. Here's a link to my website and my prices. That's it. And yeah, I did pretty well with just that simple email.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. And that's one of those things. So I was talking to somebody, I think it was a podcast only, and they mentioned that one of the best ways to write simple conversational emails is to just write an email, then record yourself reading the email back to yourself. Like record it and then get it back. Because if it's not conversational, if it doesn't sound like something that you won't say to a friend, don't send it.
Yeah, then it just,
Yeah.
because then you sound like a robot. You sound like you just don't sound like a human being.
Yeah. So they get that. So their brains not automatically make that inference when they see this email. They get the sense of this sort of sleazy salesman who sent me something.
Yeah, exactly.
Wants my money is the vibe that they get. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's 100%. That's exactly what I try to avoid when I do my writing.
And I think A/B testing is the only way to get there, because nobody gets it on the first.
Yeah, it's impossible. You can't do it.
So what all did you A/B test? Was it just the copy, subject lines, like what?
So, well, I mean, yes, it's yes to both. So I think first, I think what happens with most email marketers is they will try their best at copy, and what's going to happen is they're going to see open rates at like 10% and 5%.
Right.
and they're going to think like, oh, well, if I tweak this word or I tweak this thing right here, then maybe. Um, I think when it comes to A/B testing, if you are currently having bad results, you need to just start new. You need to do like new headline, new copy, and if that doesn't work, just new headline, new copy
Mm.
until you find something that works. Basically, um, personalization is obviously huge. My headlines, I think, had one or two personalized fields. And I'm using Lemlist. Shout outs to Lemlist. But they have uh, features that allow me to personalize headlines. And yeah, that was essentially pretty much the magic bullet for me. Because I remember at the time I wasn't personalizing my headlines, and then getting something like 30% opens, which at the time I was very excited about because before that I was like 10%.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and their Instagram handle. I believe I may have posted their either the name of their podcast or yeah, I think their podcast. I would say something like, "Hey, you blank person, do you need help with your podcast? Blank podcast name."
Mm.
So, and I would sometimes find their podcast name in their bio because that's another. I've mentioned that, but in the bio, you typically get people when I collect the data.
Right.
In the bio, they would have their name and I would put that there. And if they didn't have it, it would just say, "Hey, do you need help with your podcast?" End of sentence. So
Right.
it was like, yeah. So no matter what, I was always it would work.
Yeah. It wasn't an automation hashtag automation fail or something. It still work even if.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no matter what, it would work.
Awesome.
So sense grammatically is what I'm saying.
Awesome. So um. So yeah, what were some of the mistakes? I know you mentioned that you had bad open reply rates when you first started. So what were some of the
Mhm.
mistakes you think you made, and what would be your advice to someone who's just starting today?
So okay, I would say when I first started out, I think the biggest mistake was that I wasn't testing my headlines enough, as much attention to my headlines.
Mm.
I had no personalization in my headlines at all. I think that was a huge problem. I also didn't have enough to properly test. So back then, I was still manually scraping these emails. So I think I hired someone on Upwork to go and build a list for me. Got really really expensive really quick. I think I was paying like $100 per like 300 emails or something,
That's
something ridiculous. Um, so like I would only segment like 20 or 30 emails, which I mean I'm not sure if you're familiar with statistics, but you get a lot of variance. So if you have a list of like 30 people and you send it and you have a click-through rate of like 10, it doesn't necessarily mean that your email will only perform at 10% opens. It might mean that the 30 people who saw of the 30 people you sent it to, like they either weren't active or didn't check their email that day, or there's a million different reasons why. So I couldn't get any sort of conclusive evidence
mm,
because I just didn't have the volume to know for certain. Like I didn't send it an email to like 5,000 people and have 10% when it finished. It was like sending it to 10, 20, and then it would do like 20, send it to another 10, 20, and it would do like 40%. And
mm,
so my results were all over the place. And so I didn't know what to work on. So if I had to give advice, it would be to first build a large list for you to run tests on.
mhm.
That's going to be probably key number one, and then it's like build a list, start testing your copy, start with your headline, and then your body, and then from there it's just a sales process, which is a whole nother discussion.
Right, right. No, I think that's completely fair. I think especially in terms of the headline, because what people forget is that you get limited real estate on your emails. What I mean by that is, for example,
Mhm.
a lot of people do their emails just on their phone. So they would just look at something like the notification that came in for that, for that particular email.
Yes, exactly.
Or, what the email looked like in their email client, which on mobile, which is even smaller.
Yeah.
So you actually
Yes.
don't have even like 50 words, you have less. You have like 12, 13 words within which their mind is made up whether they're going to open it or not, right? And if you give
Yeah,
out
exactly.
vibe within the first 13 words that this email is not for me, then you'll get a bad open rate. So yeah, so one of the things that that I've heard from other people also is that they'll just send one test email to a phone, to a mobile, and they'll just open it up there, right?
Mm.
Or
Hmm.
sort of like do a desktop preview, because on a desktop client it's the subject line plus the first few words, right? So
Right.
that needs to look appealing. So
Yeah,
that's
definitely shorter emails perform so much better. No one has time to read a giant paragraph, or no one wants to see like a clickbait headline.
yeah, even just the personalization in the headline is more important, because if you can put more than hey name quick question, if you can do like hey name quick question about your podcast, like for me cold outreach success stories, I'll instantly open it. I mean, it mentions my podcast. So it's just this sort of primal connection. I just don't even think about it, I just see it and I open it, like what's this about my podcast now. So that's why I feel that one of those pieces around personalizing early on in your email works better as
Mm.
opposed to personalizing
Yes.
later on, because
Yeah.
your real estate is disproportional in that sense.
Yes. I mean, I think like a testimony to my success almost is I would receive a lot of emails from people who would tell me no
Hmm.
out of courtesy because they thought I had taken the time to like physically write the email.
Right. It's like you're almost fooling them at that point. Like they can't tell it's
Yeah, they can't. They really thought I took the time to write the email, which I mean is like
yeah.
exactly what you want.
Exactly. That's the gold standard.
Right.
Cool. So in terms of what's next for you? Like, what are you thinking of? Think you're
Oh,
thinking
okay.
to improve your outbound?
So that's a good question. I think I want to focus. So my intel is pretty much all taken up. I don't want to work on any more. It is. I think I just have my work cut out for me already. I'm already getting referrals from my existing client base, so I don't necessarily to do that much more outbound. However, for a social broker, for any aspiring, I will help people build lists.
Hmm.
It is something that takes much time and is more to others that I think the sort of time benefit ratio works out for me.
In terms of what's next for you, the social brokers piece, love for you to sort of say that again, because
So with social broker, it's like broker is what I want to focus on forward. Essentially, it's a service that will help. It's an all-in-one data aggregation service for aspiring email marketers who want to start a campaign. Essentially, if they had a copywriter on hand or if they were confident in their copywriters, my service all the information you would need, the volume, the types of data, um, start a successful email campaign that does similar or to what I have experienced, sort of have seen. Works out that the to benefit ratio for me is um, because with podcasting and all that stuff, my clientele is referring me to clientele, so I don't necessarily need to work on that business as much anymore. I don't need to be as proactive as I once was with my email campaigns. I'm very much okay with where it's at right now. It's growing on its own without me having to do anything. And so for moving forward, Social Broker is going to be my primary focus. And actually, a funny thing that I found is that it's very hard to email marketers. Like I can't find them on any sort of social media platform. Like I can't scrape their data in mass and then build an email campaign. I've tried; it doesn't work. I don't know why. So now I'm taking a more grassroots approach to finding clients for that.
Right. No, I think this carries an important learning for some of our listeners because, like for agencies, one of the best way to get clients is by referrals. If you're selling services, the one of the best ways to actually get referrals. But to build up that initial base, right? Cold email
Mm-hmm.
campaigns are a great way because they'll then power the next cycle of referrals for you, and you won't need them anymore. So you just need to be successful with cold emails once, right?
Once, yeah, that's it. It's crazy.
It's, you'll have to sort of, you'll have to iterate to get there. But if you're there once, the referrals will power you after that. So it's not a, but most people just give up, right? Because I mean, you would
Yeah,
have given up early on if you hadn't figured out like this much variance. I need a bigger list, or I need to sort of scrape Instagram and run these sort of. It was almost like for you. I feel it was almost like wearing a doctor's, a doctor's approach.
yeah. My engineering degree definitely kicked in for me.
Yeah,
I definitely looked at it as like a problem I needed to solve.
exactly. So it's that A/B testing, experimentation mindset. It's almost like I was saying a doctor's. I meant a scientist's approach to
Yes.
A/B testing and finding out what the problem is with this piece of, you know,
Yeah,
system.
that's exactly it.
Cool. I guess there's a lot of learnings from here for our listeners. Tony, thank you once again for coming on, man, and really interesting to hear about your process.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Right, man, and I'm sure that we can find ways of working together at least on the social broker stuff because we're coming up with this email automation platform and would love for you
Hmm.
to try it and see how social brokers can fit in there.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to.
All right, man. Take care.